I've got a couple announcements. I'd like to inform everyone that Sean Driscoll, the authority's communication director, is making an audio and video recording of today's meeting. Is there anyone else making an audio recording of today's meeting? If so, please identify yourself by pressing the raise your hand icon, or if you are joining by phone, pressing *9 on your keypad. And when you are recognized, please state your name for the record.
Louisa?
Yes, it's Louisa Hofstadter with the Vineyard Gazette. Good morning.
Thank you. Rich?
Hi, Rich. Happy times.
Thank you. That's all I see.
Okay, pursuant to Section 20 of Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021 and in line with social distancing guidelines followed during the COVID-19 pandemic, some of our board members today are participating remotely. Please, because their physical attendances today would be unreasonably difficult, some board members are participating in the meeting by the Zoom video conferencing app, and all members will be clearly audible to each other. As a result of the members' remote participation in this meeting, any and all votes taken by the members today shall be by roll call vote. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the authority's August 16th meeting. Mr. Malkin,
I move the minutes. Thank you.
is there a second? Mr. Jeffrey for the second. All in favor by roll call?
Jones, aye.
Jeffrey, I.
Malcolm, I.
And Randy, aye. We also have the minutes of the authority's August 31st, 2022 meeting. Is there a motion on this? Mr. Malkin?
Move, please.
Is there a second? Mr. Jeffrey, all in
I'll
favor
second.
by roll call?
Jones, aye.
Jeffrey, I.
Malcolm, I.
Randy, aye. Next up, we have the Port Council's report. Who do we have from the Port Council?
Mr. Cahill.
Mr. Cahill,
Muted.
All right, let's start over. Good morning, everybody.
morning.
The Port Council met on September 13th, and we had a similar agenda to yours today. There were two key takeaways from our meeting. One, that we voted 5-0 to propose the 2023 Martha's Vineyard summer and fall operating schedule. So that was one. And the second one was that we want to move forward with the 10 names on the new vessels that Sean will present to you today. And that's it. That's all I have to say.
Any questions for Mr. Cahill? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next item up, the General Manager's report.
Well, good morning, everyone. So here in the Public Safety Building in Nantucket, Terrence Keneally and Sean Driscoll from the staff. This is Mark. Can you identify who's in the barn with you?
We're here in Falmouth. We have Mark Munson, Monica Andre, Allison Fletcher, Bill Coutier, Courtney Oliveira.
Okay. We have a lot of echo there, so whoever's in that room needs to have their ears off.
There shouldn't be anybody with it on. I don't know.
All right, so first item is an update on the website redesign, and I'll pass it off to Sean.
Good morning, everybody. Just a brief update on the website. The ADK design team is largely done with their work and is transitioning into supporting the technology team as they work to bring their designs into development. Content strategists created a plan for blog releases and continued with content for the interior pages, including content for standby and waitlist to do, or how-tos rather. The team is also reviewing photos and videos from a recent photo shoot to update the designs with new photography. The tech team has worked on completing development efforts and provided an in-person demonstration to the Steamship Authority team in July, which is similar to what the board saw themselves in their meeting of July. And while the bulk of the site's work will be done by early November, launch has been officially delayed until March of 2023 to account for delays in securing a content management system and delays in switching associated with switching our credit card processing company. This will allow the internet general openings to occur before launch and give us more time to refine the experience before we go live. And as always, we've been continuing our public engagement through the biweekly e-news and website updates at steamshipauthority.com/webproject. So happy to take any questions.
Questions from the board?
Yes,
Mr. Malcolm, go ahead.
thank you, Mr. Rennie. Sean, I recall in the last Port Council meeting, John Kale asked what percentage of our budget for this project has been expended so far. I didn't see an answer. Where are we on that, please?
Yeah, I did email that to Mr. Cahill. Let me pull it up here 1 second. As of the end of August, we're 82% through the budget, and it's all been milestone payments. So we're that's just based on milestone payments, and we're 82% of the way through.
Okay, my second question then, thank you for contacting the people on the vineyard who wish to be part of the alpha test. What's the dates on that?
I think most of them have already happened. They've been one-on-one conversations with ADK. So they're either all happened or they have been scheduled.
Thank you.
Mr. Jeffrey,
Once we go to rollout in March, what metrics, if any, are we going to use to measure the success? Are we going to look at the customer completion rate? Are we going to look at effort score? I think we need to have some metrics upon rollout in the first 90 days so we can judge the success of the new the website and mobile app.
We're working on developing that now. Some of those metrics all metrics are imperfect by design. Some of them we're not able to measure on the current site, so having comps will be difficult. But we are looking at being able to approximate a completion percentage now so that we have something to complete it against. And also we're looking at having short surveys after booking to be able to judge people's pleasure with the experience and the ease of experience. Part of the problem is that some people might drop off, not because they had a problem technology-wise, but because they couldn't book the trips they wanted. So that's not necessarily a fault of the website, but the fault of a popular travel day. So it's going to be a little bit dirty, but we're going to do the best we can to get some metrics so that we can, and also be able to let people suggest functionality and feedback and report bugs quickly so that we can knock those down as they pop up.
I'd suggest that it seems to me that a goal completion rate would be a useful metric to use, as well as measuring a customer effort score. And listening to both Mr. Malcolm and Mr. Rainey, it sounds like the current website would get a very low, from an anecdotal standpoint, customer effort score. And it seems to me that those would be the two measures that we really should look at.
And those are in the mix. I think part of the problem is that you end up getting the extremes on that. People don't necessarily fill out surveys when everything goes fine. They fill out surveys when things go wrong. And certainly we need to capture that as well, but we want to make sure we're getting a holistic experience. But the ADK team and I have had many preliminary discussions on it. So we'll have a set of analytics ready to go by launch so that we can be measuring that in the first 90 days and beyond.
John, I'd just add, maybe too, we could look to incentivize to get more positive feedback, or just in general, more feedback. Obviously, people are motivated when they have a bad experience, but treating it the same way when we were soliciting for the names of the two new vessels, proposing names that way, if we could have some type of fun incentive lottery in terms of steamship tickets just to broaden our participation, trying to measure. I think those metrics are going to be very, very important for us moving forward.
Agreed. Good suggestion, Peter. Thank you.
Anything else from the board on the website? Okay, moving on.
All right, so next we have an update on the Woods Hole Terminal site work. Lawrence Lynch had been expected to arrive last week to begin the site work. I understand that they were delayed and will be on site this week. We did have a test geothermal well drilled into the employee parking lot in Woods Hole to be able to confirm the expectations of being able to have the geothermal along with the photovoltaic cells to make this a net zero energy project. I think the initial readings that my understanding is that those initial readings are good, a good result. So again, the first part of this project is the entrance where the traffic booth is and raising that up, and then we'll be moving on to the south side of the property in front of slip one. So. If anyone has any questions on that. Not hearing any. Next is an update on the motor vessel containment dry dock. And if Mark Amundson is in the room, Mark.
Mark, you need to unmute yourself in the barn.
Good morning, everyone. An update on the containment project. She completed her dry dock at Thames Shipyard in London, Connecticut last Friday and came back, and now she's doing her finalized repair period before going back into service. So we've got a couple snapshots here. Next photo, please. Just a photo of the stern frame area showing the underwater completion of that area. Next, please. And this is some of the bottom structural plate that shell plate that we replaced. Next photo. And final coatings prior to undocking. Next. And this is some of the floors that we replaced in the bow area. So and then before we poured the concrete back in, concrete is necessary for the ballast for the vessel. Next. And this is some more coating of the channel coolers on the underside shell plate. Next. And this is the final pour. Whatever concrete we took out, we had to re-pour to maintain. This is for the stability of the vessel. And that is now dry and she's complete. Next. Just some photos of the bow area and after final painting. Next. This is a new fire detection system we put in for protection of our crews while they're sleeping at night and on board the vessel. Next. So some of the dry dock highlights, obviously structural steel renewal in the bow and stern frame area, new fuel oil purifier installation, and new fire detection system install. Next. And this is a containment snapshot. The contract value was 1.11 million. The credits were 246,550, and we had 512,314 in changeovers, and the grand total credits and changeovers and contract 1.379 million. Any questions from anyone?
Not seeing any.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, so next on the agenda is status on the purchase of 2 used offshore vessels. So following the approval of the members at the August 16th meeting, the Steamship Authority entered into an agreement of purchase and sale with Hornbeck Offshore Services LLC for the purchase of the MV HOS Shooting Star and the MV HOS Lodestar, excuse me. The purchase was contingent upon a satisfactory inspection of the vessels at a mutually acceptable dry dock facility. So on Thursday, August 25th, the Shooting Star was towed from Houma, Louisiana to Conrad Shipyard in Morgan City, Louisiana, about 30-40 miles down the intercoastal. The vessel was placed in dry dock to allow our personnel, along with a naval architect, to inspect the hull and all the attachments, the rudders, the props, etc. In addition, we had electronics and equipment vendors on site as well, inspecting systems on board to determine their condition. Following a multi-day inspection of the vessel, it was found to be acceptable. On Friday, August 26th, the Lodestar was similarly towed from Houma down to Morgan City. Following the undocking of the Shooting Star, the Lodestar was placed in the dock for a similar inspection. And the following day, it was determined that the vessel was in acceptable condition. So this past Thursday, September 22nd, we had the closing on the purchase. It was finalized at 1 o'clock Eastern time. We wired the balance of the purchase price of $10,147,500, which includes the brokerage fees as well. And in addition, there was a wire for $302,658.60 that was sent to Hornbeck. That included the cost for the towing, the labor, a survey team to gauge the hull, the dry docking of the vessels, as well as the fuels that were on board, and on all that as per the purchase and sales agreement. So at this point, the team continues to work on putting together the dry dock package for these vessels. And we expect to have that out shortly, looking for an award of a contract for that at the November meeting.
Questions from the board? Hearing none, we'll keep going.
Okay. So now the fun and games. So the Steamship Authority, as part of the purchase, is required to rename the Shooting Star and the Lodestar within 30 days. So there's a little background here. The Steamship Authority has historically named its vessels after familiar locations on both the mainland and on the islands. The naming rights, traditionally the honor of naming vessels had rotated amongst the members, with the staff performing just an advisory role in this process, as it is the board's ultimate decision as to the names. So by way of background, the Island Home, for instance, was named in 2005 upon a motion of then Dukes County member Cassie Roselle. The MV INO was named in 2006 at the suggestion of Bob O'Brien, and then who represented Barnstable at the time. And in 2004, there was a committee that was established, including 2 authority members and 3 Port Council members, to consider names for a new ferry. At that time, the Falmouth member, Kathy Norton, made a motion that the vessel be named the MV Woods Hole, which passed unanimously. So at the members' August 16th meeting, staff presented a recommendation method in terms of developing a short list. The board suggested that it be open to the public. And I think we got over 8,200 entries that were made, and it was over 9,000 names that were included in those entrants. And we provided a list of those with your packet. At the Port Council meeting back on the September 13th, the Port Council recommended that the list be narrowed down to 10 names. Those were as potential names, the MB Aquina, the MB Hyannis, MB Madaket, MB Menemsha, MB Monomoy, and MB Marshall, MB New Bedford, MB Enope, the MB Siasconset, and the MB Wampanoag. So the recommendation is the members select 2 names. They don't have to necessarily be from that list. But we do need to have a name so that way we can submit the renaming to the United States Coast Guard Vessel Documentation Center.
What's the pleasure of the board? Mr. Malkin.
Thank you. Thank you, Authority, for going through the process. I would suggest that I'm comfortable with any one of the 3 names that recognize the native owners of Martha's Vineyard. So that's Nuepe, Aquina, or Marshall as a name for one of the vessels. Thank you.
Mr. Jeffrey.
Do have a question. Have we asked the Wampanoag Tribal Council their position on the use of any of these names, including ones that are not placeholders currently or geographic places on either of the islands? I think we should be sensitive to that, specifically kind of using the Wampanoag. I feel kind of in line with Mr. Malcolm as to what he would like to choose. I think probably the Aquina makes a lot of sense to me since it will be replacing the Gayhead. And that kind of makes geographic sense to name it after that. I just want to be sensitive to the Wampanoag tribe that we don't co-opt the tribal name for one of our ships.
Yeah, Mr. Jeffrey, I did reach out to the chairwoman of the tribe, the Aquina tribe. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to connect with her before today's meeting. I think tentatively she has time on Friday, and I tried to accelerate that call unsuccessfully. So I will have that discussion, but I was unfortunately unable to do so before today.
Mr. Jones.
Well, it is, I don't have a lot of passion, one way or the other, but for some reason, Hyannis kind of jumps out at me and looking at the fact that we have the Nantucket and, we have the Martha's Vineyard and we have the Woods Hole. And I'm just saying, well, why not the Hyannis? Hyannis is a name that's known, actually, you could say throughout the world because of the Kennedys and things like that. Nobody knows the Ayano. Few know the rest of the Indian names. I love that name. But I would just put that on the table. If I had any passion at all, I think it would kind of balance up the thing to let you know we're still here.
Okay, for myself, I like the name Aquina because it replaces the Gayhead, and it's got a certain ring to it. I would also like a name so that's a vineyard name. I would like a Nantucket-ish name. So personally, I would choose either the MV Monomoy or the MV Madaket in addition to the Quina. And also, I would also remind people that we have another opportunity potentially for a 3rd vessel after this. So if your first choice doesn't make this round, it could come back up again.
Yeah, I'd also like to add that Ayano and Hyannis really, Ayano was a member of the Wampanoag tribe also. So we cover that base pretty carefully. But it seems like, most of the names, end up on the islands here. And I just want to make a statement that we are alive and well. And if you said you were going to Hyannis or on the Hyannis, people would recognize it.
Okay. Now what?
No, and just in terms of, one of the things that staff was looking at is that as we name these vessels, as you know, the motor vessel Nantucket spends a good portion of the year down on the Vineyard Run, and that's the most asked question. The most pointed out issue is that we're not going to Nantucket, we're going to the Vineyard, and so that was there were some other names that were included on the lists, East Chop, West Chop, things like that. So from a staff perspective, I think we'd prefer to try to keep away from a designated port as a name, because it becomes, you got the Woods Hole running on the Nantucket Run for a good portion of the year. And, I don't know how many times people say, I'm not going to Woods Hole, I'm going to Hyannis. So, whether Barnstable would be an option for the, so.
Old Colony would be an option.
So.
Okay.
Can we, could the board go ahead and name 3 vessels, 2 to be used now and the 3rd on the next vessel that comes up?
Yeah, I think hopefully, we'll be in a position, we'll have a clearer understanding as to the options that we have on the 3rd and 4th vessel. But I don't know whether it'd be premature if that wasn't to happen, that whether down the road we're tied into a name that that had been promoted.
I just asked because I understand and empathize with Mr. Jones, and would be very agreeable to have the next freight ferry, if we're lucky enough to acquire it, have a Barnstable specific name. I do like the idea of the Aquina to replace the Gayhead, and if we're replacing the Sanctity, having a Nantucket name, as Mr. Rainey proposes.
Well, to help things out, I will take Hyannis off of the table and go with Aquina. I just like the name.
Okay, so it sounds like we're more or less at a consensus for Aquina. Is that for one of the names? Are we in agreement on that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so we got one.
We have a motion.
Randy, are you more comfortable with the Madaket or Monomoy?
I'm comfortable with either one of those.
Are there-
I don't necessarily have a preference for either one. I'm comfortable with both.
Mr. Lowell at the Port Council had a strong
Mr.
preference for Monomoy.
I'm going to recognize Mr. Lowell from the audience.
There's one right there.
Make sure you hit the button.
I haven't been in here for anything since February 2020, I don't think. Thank you all for being here. I just want to bring up something I brought up at the Port Council meeting that I think is an interesting little nugget to just plug in. Not that it matters today. So I asked Bob about keeping a name, like, for example, the Sanctity. The Sanctity name is sort of Sconset, Nantucket. It has a nice ring. It's got 3 syllables. I think the 3-syllable names kind of have a way of flowing off your, when you say it, it's better. I don't know why. It just seems that way. And back when we had the motor vessel Nantucket, was the steam vessel built in 1956, I believe. And when we got the Nantucket, we called it the new Nantucket. Now it's the old Nantucket, but that's what we called it. We switched the names around. We took the name from the Nantucket and made it the new one. And then we took the Noshaw name and plugged it into the old one and kept it running until 1987 from 1974. I don't think we should always think about retiring a name like it can never be either continued or brought back to a future name. And it's interesting, Mr. Jeffries brought up the naming the third one. There's an idea. I think that what I'm saying sort of helps that concept. That we have a Nantucket named Sankaty, we like it. I think it kind of fits this freight boat sort of thing. But on the other hand, it doesn't mean that we can't say Mattakit now for a few years. I just want to say that I think the gay head replacement's great. I didn't even realize that was the former Quinna name. I didn't even know that myself. But I think that some of these names need to stay that we have, that we're really used to and we like. And so I also think that when if and when we do retire the Sankaty, maybe that we think about this then as far as like switching like we did with the Nashon and the Nantucket. Just an idea. So that's all. Thank you very much for being here. Take care.
Thank you for that. Does that help anybody? As far as picking a name?
We picking just one or two.
No, we need to pick one more.
Well, let me just throw this out. And I can't say that I'm gonna get, a great round of enthusiasm as that I got for Hyannis. So I'll try this, that Hyannis was one of the original ports, on Cape Cod during the year of the Packlet schooners and things like that, and the railroads that came down to Falmouth and came into Hyannis. It was at the end of off of C Street and the end of the inner harbor there. The inner harbor actually on a map is the breakwater. And the inner harbor that we say is the inner harbor is not officially. But anyways, let me say that the old Colony Railroad used to run down there, and it ran right out onto the wharf. It was the only deep water port on the south side of Cape Cod, other than Woods Hole. There was no harbor of refuge on the south side of Cape Cod, except for behind the breakwater they built later. So it has a very historical tie to it. The road going down from Main Street is when you go off on an angle, going straight down to Gosnell. It actually went right straight across down on the wharf. And it was called the Old Colony, and it is the Old Colony. So, I have a Hyannis passion. I'm just going to throw that out and see what a great job I did in presenting it.
Yes, Brooke Moore.
Hi, all. This is my first steamship meeting. I'm Brooke Moore. I'm a member of the Nantucket Select Board. It just occurred to me the Monomoy references both Cape Cod and Nantucket. So as an option to, depending on where you're from, it focuses to both places. So it's just a thought I had.
Thank you. Should we just go through them and everyone shout their pick out, or I don't know how to proceed with this.
You want to do a motion first for Aquina and get that one out of the way?
Okay, well, let's make a motion to accept Aquina. Do we have a motion for that? Mr. Malkin, it looks like.
So moved.
Yeah, I would move Aquina for one of the vessels, and given Mr. Lowell's support of the Monomoy as a name at the Port Council meeting, Mr. Rainey's mention of Monomoy as well, and the fact as just pointed out, it does tie the Cape and the island together. I'd also move Monomoy as the second name.
Mr. Jeffrey.
I'll second Mr. Malkin's motion.
Okay, now we're moving. Do we have we're going to take a vote on this?
What's the name?
We have Aquina and Monomoy. But wait, we have one more question from the audience. Mr. Graziadei.
Yes. Hi, Jason Graziadei, Nantucket Current. will you specify which one is which? The Lodestar gets Quina, the Shooting Star gets the other one, or are we thinking too far down the line?
You're getting a little technical here.
So, yeah, when we submit the documentation, we'll have to identify which vessel is, because they each have official numbers and names already. So, but at this point, it's not critical because these vessels are so much the sister ships. So they're identical and almost all meet all conditions. So.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for Aquina and Monomoy. We'll take a roll call vote on that.
Jones, aye.
Jeffrey, I.
Malcolm, I.
And Randy, I. See, that was easy. We can do this. Okay, moving on.
Okay, so next is the report on the for the proposed 2023 Martha's Vineyard summer and fall operating schedules that the staff would like to present. So this past April, the authority placed newspaper advertisements of its proposed 2023 summer and fall schedules for the Martha's Vineyard route and the Nantucket routes. That'd be for the period of May 18th, 2023 through January 3rd, 2024. Those notices were also published on our website as well as newspapers. On May 31st, the authority received a petition objecting to the SSA's scheduling of the 5:30 a.m. early morning freight from Woods Hole to Martha's Vineyard and its multiple negative public health impacts on Falmouth and Woods Hole residents caused by pre-dawn noise, as well as the ever-increasing threat to public safety resulting from increasing freight traffic over Falmouth roads leading to and from Woods Hole. Over 160 names were on the petition. 160 names were on the petition. In accordance with the Steamship Authority's Enabling Act, a public hearing was held on the proposed 2023 schedules on June 8th, 2022. Following the petition, the staff considered the verbal and written testimony that was both for and against the scheduling of the 5:30 trip during the summer schedule. Staff has also considered schedule modifications, but we still remain concerned over conflicts that changes in the operating schedule would entail both at our terminals and in the harbors with the vessel movements. Staff is committed to continue to try to work with its freight customers to mitigate any early morning noise disruption. And the authority regularly communicates its terminal policies to manage the Woods Hole traffic and noise mitigation policies to its freight customers. Those policies include that truck drivers are prohibited from idling their truck engines at any of our ferry terminals for more than 5 minutes in violation of Chapter 90, Section 16A of the Mass General Law. Trucks are not to be backed up on terminal property except when necessary to stage them for boarding or to load them onto a ferry with the permission of the terminal agent. In addition, when trucks are being backed up on the terminal property, their backup alarms may not be excessively loud and should be adjusted to the extent possible so that they only are loud enough for the intended safety purpose. When driving to or from any of our ferry terminals, truck drivers are required to obey all posted speed limits and all other traffic laws, signs, and restrictions, including stopping when required at all pedestrian and bicycle crossings. Truck drivers should also drive at all times in a safe and courteous manner towards drivers, bicyclists, and residents. When driving on Woods Hole Road, drivers should reduce their speed well in advance of the curves and downhill stretches so they can minimize using their engine compression brakes or Jake brakes. And truck drivers may not stop or park along highways or roads where it's illegal to do so along Woods Hole Road. Furthermore, the trucks are prohibited from arriving at the Woods Hole terminal prior to 6:30 a.m. except as follows. Trucks with the reservations for the 5:30 a.m. trip may arrive beginning at 5:10. Trucks with the reservations for the 6 a.m. trip may arrive starting at 5:30. Trucks with the reservations for the 6:30 and 6:45 trips may arrive at the terminal beginning at 6 o'clock. And then trucks with reservations for 7 a.m. may begin arriving at 6:15. So to enforce these policies, the authority monitors the arrivals of the trucks. And we've contacted the companies if they arrive before the time that they're scheduled to. In addition, in response to the Woods Hole community requests and its public safety concerns attributed to freight trucks, and to discover any potential viable alternatives, the Steamship Authority earlier this year did issue a request for proposal seeking proponents for a freight service originating from an off-Cape port to be part of the long-term marine transportation network. As we stated earlier, over 20,000 emails were sent to marine-related companies notifying them of the opportunity. But when the August deadline for those submittals arrived, there were no proposals received. There were 47 companies, however, that did take out the package. We've been contacting them. We do have a meeting later this week of the authority's Long Range Vineyard Task Force to discuss the RFP and the feedback that we've been getting from some of those companies, and to consider what next best steps we should be taking and bringing those back to the Port Council and to the board. In addition to this, the staff also is aware of a request to operate a late night commuter service for the Vineyard hospitality workers. The authority reviewed its 2022 occupancy reports for the period between June 1st and August 31st. And during that time, the authority transported on average 111 passengers on its 9:30 departure from the Vineyard. Of those 111 passengers averages, approximately half of those passengers were traveling with vehicles. So basically about 55 passengers will depart on average from that last trip. To consider operating additional round trips beyond the current schedule of 9:30, the authority would need to transport approximately 425 passengers as a minimum to cover the vessel's related fuel expense. And then without any definitive indication of a demand for this service, the authority is not inclined to amend its 2023 operating schedules, proposed operating schedules for the purpose of providing a late night commuter service. The Port Council at their September meeting voted to recommend that the members approve the 2023 fall and operating schedules as proposed. And the staff is recommending first to approve the report issued under Section 15A of the Authorities Enabling Act on the proposed 2023 summer operating schedules of the Woods Hole, Martha's Vineyard, and Nantucket Steamship Authority as presented. Secondly, to approve the proposed 2023 summer operating schedules for the Martha's Vineyard route covering the period of May 18th, 2023 through October 23rd, 2023 as presented. And finally, to approve the proposed 2023 fall operating schedules for the Martha's Vineyard route covering the period October 24th, 2023 through January 3rd, 2024 as presented.
Questions from the board? Okay, we'll take these individually. Is there a motion to approve the report that was issued under Section 15A of the Authorities Enabling Act on the proposed 2023 summer operating schedules for the Vineyard Group? Mr. Malkin,
I'd move that. And then may I make a comment, Mr. Chair?
go ahead.
I've listened carefully to the concerns raised by Mr. Jeffrey and our friends in Woods Hole. And this will be, I guess, my third or fourth discussion of this. I want to restate, and I like Mr. Jeffrey's quote about listening through the noise. The select boards of Martha's Vineyard towns and our hospital and the police chiefs have told me and have told the Steamship Authority that the summer 5:30 boat is important to the Vineyard. Should their position change, I'm happy to change my position, but I have to respond to my constituents. And I then also would just add, as a comment that, again, Hyannis has an early boat year-round. Vineyard Haven has a 5:30 boat year-round. We're not looking to increase capacity on these routes, and we haven't in the past 5 years. This is part of what we need for an economy that's growing here just as it's growing on the Cape. And in terms of enforcement, I think that's something that is definitely, despite all the work that Allison and the Steamship Authority have done to deal with concerns, enforcement is an issue for the police departments and the Mass State Police. Thank you.
Was part of that your motion?
My motion is to approve the schedule as presented.
The report.
Well, we're just on the report.
Pardon me,
Yep.
the report.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Jones. We'll take a roll call vote on that. All in favor?
Jones, aye.
Jeffrey abstains.
Malcolm, I.
And Randy, aye. Now we have we need to have a motion to approve the proposed 2023 summer operating schedule from May 18th, 2023 to October 23rd, 2023 on the Martha's Vineyard route as presented by staff.
I will move that.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor by roll call?
Without discussion.
Oh, you can discuss. Go ahead.
No, I'll pass on discussion because I'll be saying the same thing I've said for the past 5 years. And as sad as it is, as much as you'd like to, recognize the problem and things, I mean, it's a universal problem and we have a duty to provide the service to the islands. And I don't want to repeat myself, but my office was right next to the Steamship Authority for years. And the testimony that we've heard doesn't coincide with what my experience is. So I will leave it at that. And are you ready for a vote?
Yep, we have a motion and a second. Oh, Mr. Jeffrey, go ahead.
I would just like to make a comment. Like Mr. Malcolm, my appointing authority has a position on these schedules. They oppose the 5:30 ferry. I think that the board's in a very difficult position as board members. That, we're being asked to fix problems that go well beyond a steamship schedule, the lack of infrastructure on the island in terms of how it handles its sewage and trash, and the need to export that off at the same time, a lack of proper enforcement in Woods Hole and Falmouth by the police department, state police. And those aren't things that either that the board should be responsible for. Unfortunately, it ends up with us having to have a 5:30 ferry, which I know will pass, but I will be voting the way I'm instructed by my appointing authority.
Okay, thank you. We'll take a roll call vote.
Jones, aye.
Jeffrey, no.
Malcolm, I.
And Randy, aye. And one more, to approve the proposed 2023 fall operating schedule for the Martha's Vineyard route covering the period of October 24th, 2023 to January 3rd, 2024. Is there a motion on this?
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, unless there's further discussion? No, okay. All in favor?
Jones, aye.
Jeffrey, I.
Malcolm, I.
Randy, aye.
Thank you. And I think that's it for me at
That's
the
it for
moment.
you. Okay, so we'll move on to the treasurer's report. Really, Mr. Rosen is still awake.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
To my left is Courtney Olivera. She is the Assistant Treasurer for the Steamship Authority.
Morning.
Morning, Courtney.
So we're going to share screen for the presentation of the 2023 preliminary proposed operating budget We'll go over the budget first, then answer any questions, then go over the proposed fare adjustment. If that works for the board. Okay, so for the 2023 operating budget, the assumptions we're using on the revenue side is for the previous 12 months. So that's from August 1st, 2021 through July 31st, 2022. Previously, we made adjustments due to COVID and looking at projections on numbers for the foot traffic, vehicle traffic, and parking. But this year, we're looking at the historical traffic for the last 12 months as we did previous to COVID. Big driver on the budget is the increased fuel cost. We're expecting our budgeting about $5.6 million increase compared to last year's budget, which is about a 69% increase. Last year's budget, we budgeted $2.37 a gallon for the year. This year at $3.93. Inflation from July 21 to July 2022, the CPI is up 8.5%. So looking at the budget, we have no material changes other than the maintenance costs, depreciation costs, interest costs, and we'll go over the expense side in a few more slides. So looking at the current previous 12 months traffic and looking at the current fare structure we have in place, we're projecting operating revenues of $129,661,000. Operating expenses of $132,674,000, other income of $8.7 million, other expenses of $4.6 million, bringing us to a net income for the year for $1 million. Last year's approved operating budget was at $9.1 million to put in perspective. Next slide. And Courtney will be going over the operating expenses for everyone.
Okay, the largest operating expense changes between the 2022 and 2023 budget are operation of terminals up 900,000 and general expense up 1.1 million. Increased utility costs are affecting both of these categories up more than 30% over the 2022 budget. General expense also includes a $300,000 increase to pensions and relief and the addition of the new COO position. Depreciation is up 1.5 million. This includes 7 electric buses with charging stations, 2 new shuttle vans, the new website and mobile app, in addition to the 2 new vessels that we can now call the motor vessel Aquina and the motor vessel Monomoy. Maintenance expense is up 1.8 million. We have more details about that on the next slide. Operation of vessels is up 6.9 million. Like Mark said, the biggest driver is fuel, up 5.6 million over the current year's budget. The budgeted price per gallon in 2023, like Mark said, is $3.93. The 2023 maintenance expenses, this includes 4.8 million for the dry docking of 5 vessels and just over 4 million in terminals, dolphin, and dock repairs. Projects include new HVAC at the Vineyard Haven terminal and repairs to the concrete decking at the Vineyard Haven dock. Pier decking repairs in Oak Bluff ahead of the 2023 season. New siding on the Hyannis terminal building and traffic booth. Installation of a passenger tent for the fast ferry in Nantucket. And dock repairs and maintenance, including new bollard installations at the 3 island locations and Hyannis.
Okay. So in the operating revenue projections using the previous 12 months, expecting passenger revenue to increase about 8.1% and just over 2.4 million. That's both the quantity compared to last year's budget as well as the type of passengers traveling. Parking revenue expected to increase about 15%. Last year's budget was a little low on some projections, and looking at the comparison from last year and this year's actual traffic patterns, that's where we're seeing that spread. Freight revenue expecting to increase about 3.7%, and automobile revenue expecting to actually decrease by 1.3%, and that's primarily because of the mix of vehicles traveling. Here's a chart showing how our income is derived during the course of the year. So in the beginning, you can see we lose money from January through April, which puts us at a cumulative net operating loss of about $16 million. Then at the for October at the peak, we come out to about 8.9 million. And then at the end of the year, we'd be just over $1 million. And with that, Courtney or myself would be happy to answer any questions regarding the 2023 preliminary operating budget. And as a side note, we'll be having an open house this Friday on Zoom, 9 a.m. for Q&A as well.
Questions from the board? No, hearing none.
Okay, so now looking at the proposed fare adjustments.
So
Hold on 1 second. Go ahead.
should point out that we won't be looking for approval of the budget until the next month's meeting. So.
Thank you, Bob.
Go to Russell.
So go to the next slide. So why are the fare adjustments needed? As mentioned by both Courtney and myself earlier, it's the big driver is the price of fuel. About $5.6 million of the almost $8 million in fare adjustments. The price of fuel is going from $2.37 to $3.93 in the budget, as well as we have additional maintenance expenses. Looking at other ferry operators in the area, here's an example of some fuel surcharges in 2022.
Mark, can you hold on a second?
Sure.
We have a question from Mr. Jones.
On the fuel costs, is that factoring in, you know, our insurance on this?
Hedging?
Sure, yes.
Is that just work cost?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Mr. Jones. In about 2 slides forward, I'll show some of the hedging pricing that we went over in July. But yes, that includes the cost of hedging. We're budgeting for about $13.7 million, and that's below what our hedges are active at.
Okay, you're clear to proceed, Mark.
Thank you. So this year, the authority, because of its hedging, did not have to implement any fuel surcharges. Our average price per gallon, as mentioned, was $2.37. Here's an example of some other ferry operators in the area that who are being impacted, like we are in our budget, for the increased prices of fuel. You can see fares changing anywhere from 5% to as high as 18%. Okay. Here's a graph showing in green what our 2022 fuel hedge strike prices were, what our 2023 prices are, and what our actual delivered costs of the fuel have been. And so with our hedges, what happens is we pay out of pocket for that yellow bar, but we get the difference, most of the difference back on a premium from our hedges. So far through August, we received back about $3.6 million to help offset those increased prices at the pump. And here's an example of where our budgeted price was last year, what our budgeted price for this year is, and by month, and what the difference is per month. So we're seeing anywhere from $1.48 to $2.20 per month. Okay. So looking at the fuel price, we're looking at to get a net income of about 9 million, we're about 1.1 million. So we're looking for fare adjustments on the Vineyard route of about 4.4 million and on the Nantucket route of 3.4 million. Next slide. So where we're looking to adjust the rates on the standard fare vehicles for both islands will be just under 2.9 million. The excursion fare of $245,000. Freight vehicles, the vehicles over 20 feet, just under 2.4 million. Passenger fares of 1.7 million. Parking of 435,000, and then barges of 145,000. So on the Vineyard route, We're seeing the standard fares about $1.9 million, which is seeing the rates change from anywhere from $3 to $5 and then $10 on the peak weekend. That accounts between 5.1 and 8.7%. Excursion fares going up $1 each way. That's reflective of the increase in the passenger fares, which are below. That equates to about a 1.9 to 2.7% increase. Freight recommending an 8% adjustment. Passenger fares, 50-cent adjustment on the adult ticket, which would equate to 25 cents for the seniors and children. And on the parking, $50 on the parking, annual parking permits, and $1 on the daily fee parking in the summer months only. On the Nantucket side, very similar. For the standard fare vehicles, we go looking for an adjustment of between $9 to $14, and with the peak Friday through Sunday in the summer, $20. Those percentages range anywhere from 5.4 to 7.3%. Excursion fares each way looking at $2, which reflect the $1 per passenger adjustment down below. That equates between 1.6 and 2.2%. Freight similar to on the Vineyard side, 8% adjustment. Barge fees, $1 a ton. The conventional ferries, $1. On the high speed, $3, and that's for the adult prices, and the same adjustment for the parking. This graph here shows the space utilization compared to the revenue for both islands. So in the blue, it's the Martha's Vineyard route, and in the red, it's the Nantucket route. The shaded spaces are the revenue side, and the solid of the spaces. So you can see the excursion fares for both islands account for 9.1% for the Vineyard and 5.4% for Nantucket, while they use almost 26% and 13.5%. Meanwhile, the standard fare vehicles use about just under 50% of the space and account for 64% of the revenue. And on the far right, we can see the freight, which is pretty close to the rates and the spaces for both islands. Slide. Here's a projection of percentage of the breakdown of what the fare adjustments would be, with the passengers accounting for 22%, the freight 30%, standard fare vehicles about 37%, parking 6%, and the excursion fare about 3% of the overall fare adjustments. Here's a graph of the net income by month showing the proposed fare adjustments, where January for April, we'd have a net operating loss of 14.4 million. And then we would, in October, peak out about 15.9 million net income. And then at the end of the year, coming in around 9 million. And so May through October, when we do make money, that's about $30 million. And in the other 6 months, we lose about $21 million. So with that, Courtney and myself will be happy to answer any questions you may have. And again, this is for informational purposes only.
Questions or comments from the board? Mr. Jones?
I just got, one curiosity question. It seems like the bottom line on the budget, we were in the black by $1 million. Are we comfortable that we're going to stay in the black by these price increases, or should we look at them harder?
That's why we're looking for the proposing the fare adjustments to put us from moving from $1 million to 9 million, similar to what this year's budget was proposed.
Anything else from Mr. Malcolm?
Thank you. Thank you for that, Mark and Courtney. Listening to this discussion with the Port Council at their meeting 2 weeks ago, I want to ask you a couple questions just to make sure I've got it right. Number one, 5.6 million is the biggest driver of the increase. That's due to fuel, tied to inflation, tied to fuel cost. We are spending more on maintenance, which, given our desire for looking at more parts, more storage, more proactive preventive maintenance makes sense to me. But those are the big cost drivers, plus the depreciation and benefits. When this was talked at the Port Council, I believe originally the proposal was to increase for islanders their fares by $1.50. You're now proposing $1 instead. Is that correct?
Correct. Thank you for bringing that up. That was my omission. At the Port Council, the Nantucket excursion fare is being proposed at $3 and the Vineyard by $1.50. We've reduced it to just reflect the price of the included passengers, the adults.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So basically through the Port Council's work, you've reduced the islanders' fares, the increase to the islanders' fares. I also heard discussion, and if you could confirm this, or maybe it's a Bob question. There's also a study and looking at increasing the numbers of spaces that are available for islanders traveling in the early morning boats, the 7, the 8:15, and the later afternoon boats returning, increasing those spaces for the 24-hour before, 7 days before, and potentially 30-day before reservations. Is that correct?
And that was mentioned at the Port Council meeting, that looking specifically at some of the early morning trips, as you mentioned, as well as making possibly another category preferred space where you have island residents who plan more than 7 days out. And how do we accommodate them? You know, where they might know they have a doctor's appointment or an appointment or a sports school event that they need to be to, say, 3 weeks out, 4 weeks out. How can we get more space for them in those regards as well? So yes.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you, Chair.
Anything else from the board? Hearing none?
Yeah, so this will be something we'll come back after the open houses that we're having on Friday. We're coming back to the Port Council and the board with our final recommendations at next month's meeting.
Yeah, there is an open house this Friday at 9 AM via Zoom on the project.
Where? On Zoom. By Zoom. Okay, what else you got?
Budget business summary. As Monica pulls it up on the screen, I just want to inform the board that last month they approved the previous board meeting, they approved the bond note resolution. We successfully went out to our bid, received 8 bids. We had a true interest cost of 2.419% on those bond anticipation notes. And the winning bidder was Jeffries LLC. Okay, business summary for the month of July. Total passengers for both routes combined were up 16,000 to 3.9%, bringing the year-to-date total up just over 101,000 passengers, 7%. Here's a comparison of the passengers carried by month from 2021 to 2022. Okay, this slide shows the vehicles under 20 feet being carried on the both routes combined. We're up 39 cars or 0.1%, so statistically flat. Looking at the year-to-date variance, we're down about just under 4,900 cars or 1.5%, with the standard fares down on both islands and the excursion fares up. Here's a comparison by month of the vehicles under 20 feet that are being carried. Freight traffic for the month of July, both routes combined, down 45 vehicles or 0.5%. Year to date, freight traffic's up 2.5% for both islands combined. And here's the monthly comparison. Cars parked for the month of July, both routes combined were up 2.9% or just over 800 cars. Year-to-date parking is up 6.2% or just over 5,100 vehicles. And again, showing the monthly comparison in the parked cars. Trip summary. So for the month of July, both routes combined, we have 12 trips canceled for mechanical and none for weather. That brings the total trips for the year to date of 79 trips for mechanical purposes and 227 for weather. While we had 136 trips canceled for demand purposes of trip consolidation. Financial snapshot for the month of July, we saw operating revenue of 19,269,000, which was higher than budget by about 517,000. We had other income of 347,000, which was higher than budget by 157,000. Operating expenses of 11,017,000 was higher than budget by just under $400,000. Income deductions of 137 was lower than budget by about $16,000. Putting this all together brings a net income of 8,463,000, which was higher than budget by about $290,000. Net income for the year, we're at 6,350,000, which is higher than budget by about 1.9 million. And for that number, we expect to close with some timing on some of the maintenance expenses. Operating revenues. And so for the month, we're up 507, just under 517,000. On the left side, there's the breakdown of each category. Year to date, we're up about 1.5 million or 2.1%. And here's a breakdown both for the month of July as well as year to date through July of where each category of revenue, how it fits into the overall composition. Operating expenses, we're up 399,000, almost 400,000 at 3.8%. Fuel for the month, even though we are hedged, was still up $148,000. We budgeted $2.47 and it came in at $2.86. Year to date, fuel prices are up 437,000 at 10.1%. We budgeted for $2.32 so far. As of July, we're at $2.61. So year to date, we're under budget of just under 610,000 at 0.9%. Here's a breakdown of the composition of the expenses for the month of July, as well as year to date through July. August numbers, passengers for both routes combined are up 29,600 or 7.4%. Year to date, we're up just under 131,000 or 7.1%. For August, on the Vineyard, we're down about 3% or 2,000 vehicles. On the Nantucket side, we're down 5.5% or 843 vehicles. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the board? Thank you,
very
Mark.
much.
Thank you, Courtney. Procurement.
All right, so next, request the members to authorize the general manager to award contract number 13-2022. Certification services to attain ISO 9001 certification, involuntary document of compliance, involuntary safety management certificates for the Steamship Authority, its facilities, and its fleet of vessels. To Rena USA Inc. as the lowest eligible and responsible bidder for the total contract price of $94,360. The next phase of the implementation of the authority's SQMS program is to obtain a voluntary certification of to validate and communicate the authority's conformance to its SQMS standards. In July, the authority issued this invitation for bid seeking management system certification services supported by audit that would be conducted by a classification society that's been approved by the Coast Guard to provide such certification services. 4 firms requested a bid package. In August, the authority received 2 bids in response to the invitation. Following the authority's receipt and review of those bids, RENA was deemed the eligible and responsible bidder with the lowest bid of $94,360. So staff is recommending that the members authorize the general manager to award contract 13-2022 certification services to obtain ISO 9001 certification in voluntary documentation of compliance, involuntary safety management certificates for the Steamship Authority, its facilities, and fleet of motor vessels to Rena USA, Inc. as the lowest eligible and responsible bidder for a total contract price of $94,360. I should point out that the bid came in at under $100,000, but since this is a major project, felt it was appropriate to bring to the board for approval.
Questions, discussions, motions, and what's the pleasure of the board?
Bob, is that all vessels?
Yes, I think the staff summary said 10. We'll have to amend that now that we have 12.
I wasn't thinking of that actually, but
We hadn't closed since when I wrote it. so.
are there any anticipated upgrades necessary for these vessels, or that they're going over, all of the criteria for ISO and whatever, and seeing if they're certified? I understand that.
So actually, the two, the Equina and the Monomoy are actually were ABS classed to begin with Hornbeck. So it's a question that we have that we'll be looking at, what classification we'll want to have those vessels as we move forward.
Okay, we need a motion on this.
I would so move.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. We'll take a roll call. All in favor?
Jones, aye.
Jeffrey, I.
Malcolm, I.
And Randy, aye.
Thank you. Next, want to request the members to authorize the general manager to contract with Boris Kurloff and Associates for engineering services related to the conversion and reactivation of the MV Equina and the MV Monomoy for an estimated total of $250,000. The Equina and Monomoy require engineering service for modifications for the calculations and drawings for Coast Guard requirements 46 CFR Chapter H conversions. In addition, the vessels need to be modified. Stern area needs to be designed to conform with the Steamship Authority transfer bridges for loading vehicles, and the design design activities for the area within the superstructure that will be off the main deck to be converted for the carriage of passengers, including seating and life-saving appliances. So recommendation to approve, authorize the general manager to contract with Boris Kurloff and Associates for engineering services for related to the conversion and reactivation of the MV Equina and MV Monomoy for a total estimated cost of $250,000.
Questions, discussions, a motion perhaps?
I have a question and then a motion, please. Did you say Boris Karloff?
Boris Kurloff.
Oh, that's better. Okay. These costs in this work was, we had mentioned, and they were all anticipated as part of the purchase of these two vessels. Is that correct?
These costs were anticipated. I think we had $100,000 for each vessel,
Right.
and we're looking now at about $250,000.
Okay, thank you. I'd move the recommendation.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor?
Jones, aye.
Jeffrey, I.
Malcolm, I.
And Randy, aye.
Next, under old business, in your packets is drafted goals, my goals for July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. Met with Mr. Jeffries regarding these goals, and there's been some slight modifications from the previous packet that was transmitted to the board. Goal number one is the complete phase 5 of the reconstruction of Woods Hole Terminal site. And added to that has been that with cost overruns not to exceed 10% of budget, in which 31% of all projects meet this industry standard. Goal number 2, invitation for bid for award a contract for the construction of the Woods Hole Terminal building and utility building by March. Number 3 has been changed slightly because it initially was to, when it was originally written, it was prior to the opening for proposals for off-Cape freight service. And since we didn't get any, it's been rewritten to complete an evaluation on alternatives for the authority's potential award of a license to provide a freight transportation service for the island of Martha's Vineyard from an off-Cape port by June 30th, 2023. So we'll be working with the Long Range Task Force and Port Council and the board on that. Number 4, oversee the solicitation of proposals and award a contract for the audit certifications. So that one's checked off now, but we still have to get the certificates. Number 5, to oversee the solicitation of proposals and award of a contract for a qualified solar developer to develop a solar array canopy at the authority's Palmer Ave parking facility to begin in the fall of 2023. Number 6 has been modified slightly. It's to oversee the development of the updated redesign of the website and development of mobile app to transition to by March 31st, 2023. Again, with the cost overruns not exceeding 10% of budget. And then the question here is with an average mobile app feedback score that we were waiting to hear from.
I have some information from ADK on that. There's not a great industry standard on that, unfortunately, but we'll intuit something. And you would also want it to be an average website and mobile app feedback score, not just the app.
Yeah. So, and that would be measuring customer effort score. As we discussed earlier, I think some of the goal completion rate, in our case with our site, as Sean pointed out, that if their goal was to get a reservation on the first Saturday in July, off island or to the island, there's very limited amount of spaces. And so if that's unlike a major retailer or online retailer where they accept that order and just manufacture more products, it's a difficult thing to be measuring in our instances, I think. So I think my suggestion would be that we go to the customer effort score, in which it would be the ease that our customers find to be able to utilize our website and mobile app. Number 7 was to complete an evaluation of the vessel replacement program by the end of the year. 8 was to issue a request for invitation bids for a contract to development of strategic planning process. Initiative to bring aboard a qualified consultant by the end of the year, as recommended in the HMS report. 10 was to continue to pursue federal funding opportunities. 10, strive to improve community relations through regular opportunities for public engagement and effective communications. 11, 12, and 13 were at the recommendation of the Port Council to oversee the development of an administrative staff, including the hiring of the chief operating officer and grants administrator. 12, to oversee significant terminal improvement projects to be undertaken in the next 12 months, including but not limited to the replacement of the Nantucket Terminal transfer bridges, the Vineyard Haven Transfer Bridge rehabilitation, the Nantucket Terminal dredge project, and signage and communication projects Mr. Jeffries would like to have added that for each project, cost overruns not to exceed 10% of budget. And then finally, to provide quarterly updates to the Port Council and the board on each of these initiatives.
Questions, Mr. Malcolm?
Thank you, Chair. Perhaps the board knows this, but I'm a little lost because last time we went through this, Mr. Rainey and I had talked about succession planning as one of the goals. And that seems to have, at least in my recollection, which could be faulty, fallen by the wayside. But that was what I believe one of the goals. Where are we in that?
Yeah, well, I was thinking that that would fall under the oversee the development of the administrative staff as part of that program.
Would you like to add language to that effect in there, Mr. Malcolm?
If it's the board's, I would, if the board agrees, yes, because I did think we had discussed this at some length a year or so ago.
Yeah, I'm happy to add that in.
Thank you.
So I'll add that in as 13 and move 13 down to 14 then.
What are you gonna do in the spare time?
Try to find out number 15.
So do we need a vote on this? Or not?
Yeah, the Port Council at their meeting on August recommended approval of these goals, so.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Malcolm?
question. There has been a fair amount of correspondence to the Steamship Authority, the Port Council, and our board from the Martha's Vineyard Commission and others who have raised 3 major questions and 10 subset questions relating to the Elliott Bay study that we had done. And I am pleased that the Long Range Task Force that's looking at the strategic plan will be addressing those issues. I understand at a meeting on the 29th. But perhaps as part of the goals discussion would be a clarification in terms of the questions that were raised. Because I know for myself as a board member, relying on the Elliott Bay study that was done for us, which I found quite convincing, compelling, and thorough, should there be issues with those conclusions, that would then shape my views. So it would be, I think it would behoove all of us to have clarification to the questions that were raised. So as we go forward, considering various alternative propulsion issues, we have a common understanding of what it is we're facing. Now, having said that, I'm not sure whether that relates directly to Bob's goals or tangentially to his strategic plan goal.
Mr. Jeffrey?
If I could add on, Mr. Rainey, I would second Mr. Malcolm's both reliance, my own reliance on the Elliott Bay design study, as well as the questions that the MV Commission brought up in the letter they sent to the board. And I don't know if goal number 7 about the vessel replacement programs is important, that this should be added on to that, or perhaps the board needs to just have this as to discuss the issues that the commission brought up at an upcoming meeting. I think that might be the best starting point. And invite the commission chair to come and speak to us, perhaps.
Mr. Malcolm?
May I follow on that? Thank you, Mr. Jeffrey. I would share, I did have a conversation with Bob on this, and he was suggesting that it might make sense for him to sit down with the MVC people first to determine specifically what it is that they would like to see addressed with the Elliott Bay report. And he could then come back to us with that information as well and shape our response in the information gathering. That would be fine with me also, I think.
Mr. Jones?
You know, I read that letter and quite frankly, I really didn't understand where they were coming from, and to assign, you know, different expenses to different, you know, profit center, expense centers and stuff really didn't make a lot of sense to me on our thinking, because the boats are gonna be unbelievably expensive. The technology is not there yet. They mentioned things like, you know, the energy is gonna be cheaper and everything. Well, I don't have a crystal ball, but I am familiar with wind power. And when they build those wind farms out there, they're gonna put, let's say, 500 windmills out there. How long it takes them to build that windmill pays for itself in somewhere around 15 to 20 years to do it, and their lifespan is about 25. So then they have to start replacing those, taking them down and everything else. I mean, it's a big problem. It's not only the wind and whatever of the cost of electricity, but it is a cost of electricity is when we decide to go with a ship. And the only ship that makes any sense at all to me to pay this amount of money is the all electric. And all electric, you know, right now with the Tier 4 engine, the Tier 4 engine is going to cost you somewhere around, you know, $4.5 million. You know, the all electric and stuff is something like 12. And the operating cost on that is $17 million a year versus back onto the conventional engine to 12. There's so many questions to answer. And you've got to get, you know, they've got to be answered by the grid. And when we go to plug in, 80% of that is dirty energy, it's not clean. I mean, and they reference California, who's hydroelectric. And I'm just throwing things out here that it is so much in the future. I think we do due diligence and plan for the future, but I don't think this will be a reality for years. I just don't. That's my personal opinion. But however you want to take and you know, proceed for that and say we're going to do it, we're going to be able to, you know, be able to pay for it. And we're trying to get, you know, our vessels, new vessels right now. We've got what, $30 million, and then if we buy another couple, there's no. We are so far behind. The only way it could be happen, it was a grant, and they mentioned that, but every boat company in the world is going to be after those grants, and where do we stand in line? It's a huge thing, and then the all electric isn't even useful to Nantucket because it doesn't have the range. It's too heavy. It won't get into Hyannis Harbor. I mean, and so I'm not really anxious to jump head on into this and do a complete market study because we're not ready. It'll be years.
Mr. Malcolm?
I agree with Mr. Jones on many things that he said, but the issue I think here is planning for the future, which I do believe Mr. Jones said. And in terms of grants, in terms of just moving forward, what we do when it's time and appropriate, and the infrastructure looks like it's coming from Eversource, et cetera, having a plan in place certainly will help us and help guide our thinking. So, you know, I'm not suggesting that we commit monies. What I am suggesting is that we simply ask Bob, as he's suggested he do, to sit down with the MVC, go through the concerns that they have regarding those assumptions behind the report that we made, that I have taken to be basically my guideline. And if there are things in there, that report that are that need to be modified or are completely fine, then I need to know that, because that's what's guiding my thinking on this issue. Thank you.
Okay, so we still need to approve the goals, right? Or is that all set? No,
No.
we didn't. Okay, so we had a motion, is that correct?
No.
No motion yet. We need a motion on the goals.
I'll move.
Is there a second?
I second.
I got one question.
As amended, correct, fellas?
Yes.
one question here is Bob's incentives and things like that pay are based upon all of these goals, so they not.
Refrain from talking about that in public session.
Oh.
Okay.
Well, I'm sorry, I did
No,
not
that's okay.
know that.
That's right. Just-
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the goals as amended. All in favor?
Jones, I.
Jeffrey, I.
Malcolm, I.
Randy, I. Next, a letter to NOAA.
Yeah. So the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration is proposing new regulations regarding vessel speeds and whether you're ready to on this, but there's a comment period that's available right now that the NOAA is proposing limiting vessel speeds from November 1st to May 30th in an effort to try to protect the right whale from vessel strikes. And that limitation would be to 10-mile-an-hour zones for any vessels 35 feet or larger. Staff has been looking at this. The zones that they're now proposing do include Vineyard and Nantucket Sounds as part of this seasonal speed zones, as opposed to the current seasonal management areas, which tend to fall farther off between the Vineyard and Block Island. So we looked at this, besides having an impact on our high-speed service, we're most concerned about the impacts it will have on our traditional ferry service. At 10 knots, we would not be able to make schedule to Nantucket, which would mean it would impact the number of trips we can run. Right now, we're able to operate 3 round trips a day with those vessels in an 18-hour operating day. In order to do so with only a 10-knot speed restrictions, it would require more than 18 hours, which would mean we'd either have to bring in an additional crew in order to do that, thus increasing our costs by a third, or we'd have to reduce the number of trips that we're able to run to and from Nantucket. And we're still looking at the Vineyard on what we'd have to do there in order to keep the number of trips that we currently have scheduled. Obviously, if we were to have to cut back to only 2 trips a day with our conventional service, it would have a devastating impact on Nantucket's economy. And, in terms of we do all the heavy lifting for the island in terms of the food, the medicines, the fuel, et cetera. And staff is of the opinion that we should be writing during the comment period to the Department of Commerce, National Marine Fisheries Services, outlining our objections to the proposed regulations, and perhaps even requesting that consideration be made for Vineyard and Nantucket Sound. We look back in the 22 years since we started running high-speed service combined for both routes. We've operated over nearly 500,000 trips back and forth between the 2 islands. And during that time, none of our crews have documented seeing any right whales in the Sound. And we're not aware of any sightings of right whales within the Sound. And we feel that that area should be excluded, much like the Long Island Sound is excluded and Buzzards Bay is excluded. So, and Terrence, I don't know if you have anything additional to add.
No, I think that's, I'm sorry. No, I think that covers it. I think it's going to be a fundamental change if we have to do that from an operational standpoint, and our operating experience doesn't support the need for the change. And I think, we're more than willing to discuss, the concerns that the federal government has with regards to operating speeds in the Sounds, but it seems to be an overreach and somewhat arbitrary in the way it's being proposed. And so we're looking for the board to give us some guidance and some blessing, if you will, to submit comments and make sure that we meet the deadline, which is the end of October now.
And obviously, this is not to minimize the plight of the right whales in that, but it's just that our experience has been that it hasn't been an issue, and so creating a solution for a problem that doesn't exist.
Mr. Malcolm?
Thank you. It may be that there is a problem that exists in certain areas, but if they're excluding Long Island Sound and they're excluding Buzzards Bay, I think it's relatively safe to ask them additionally to exclude Nantucket and Vineyard Sound, and I would support a letter or actions there too.
Mr. Jeffrey?
I would agree with not only Mr. Malcolm, but that Bob and Terry, that I do think including in the Atlantic zone under the seasonal management area, Vineyard Sound is quite the overreach. Although I think perhaps the tone of our letter, I would rather see it that we would support the implementation of dynamic speed zones, which is also put forth in the rule for areas outside of the seasonal management areas as it relates to the ferry routes. But I think I would agree that we should have an objection that in the Atlantic zone, the ferry routes in Nantucket Sound and Vineyard Sound should be included. I mean, my understanding is the right whale spotting is all happening south of both islands, not anywhere in regards to where the ferries currently run. So I do think that the Atlantic zone in the proposed rule is far too large for the seasonal management area. But we could show that our concern by saying that the dynamic speed zone for those areas would be appropriate.
So we do have some time. They extended comment period by a month on this, but this is a draft and we can revise the draft and circulate it amongst the board and port council for any further comment if that's the desire of the board.
Yeah, it sounds like that's the desire of the board.
And again, I think it's, our concern is how it's going to impact our ability to service the islands in terms of those lifeline services. And, I know that, Murray Scudder, I think is on board too regarding this, and, not to minimize the impact of the passenger only service that, the island has become so dependent upon that as a service as well. And so not to minimize that as well, so.
Mr. Lowell.
Hey, thank you again. I hate to bring up my age and remembering what's whole, but sports teams and schools, there isn't too many people left that remember when Nantucket had just football, basketball, and that was it. They didn't even have baseball until 1980. And so time has passed where the fast boat is sort of like the slow boat. And the slow boat is sort of just whatever. The slow boat is the slow boat, but the fast boat has become the slow boat in the sense of how normal it is and how it's integrated into the lives here. And with the way things get splashed in the media about the islands being elitist, rich, billionaires, and it's sort of like that's all we are. The first thing that comes to my mind is, how does this message become sort of just a normal conversation without it getting into things that are just completely irrational? And that's what concerns me. I mean, we went from Cessnas. Well, before the Cessna, we had DC-3s and the old Northeast Airlines. We used to come in here for a couple months. We used to go out and have ice cream and watch the plane take off and all the smoke. And now we have JetBlue, American Airlines. We have United going to Chicago. We have all these flights in and out of here for 3 or 4 months. But the fast boat replaced the Cessna. And it happened by itself. Nobody pushed it, nobody voted for it, nobody did anything. But now it's all sort of standard life. You know, we go to Hyannis and the Vineyard goes to Woods Hole, and this is just how it is. And for this, something like this to come up, I think is beyond the comprehension of anyone under 50 to realize what would happen. This is essentially moving Hyannis another 10 miles away and turning us backwards into when we used to go to Woods Hole to catch a bus for the whole weekend for one game. Thank you very much.
Anything else from the board?
No, it's just, when I don't think that anybody would disagree that, we got to do everything we can, to save the whales. But we always come up with, make it in other groups and stuff, paying the debt and the price for it. I mean, it's Sandy Neck, though it used to be the Diamondback Terrapin. They were going extinct, so they closed Sandy Neck. And I happen to be on the Sandy Neck board. And there's plenty of Diamondback Terrapins down south, and the piping plover. We stopped the fireworks. We put the fireworks in July, the end of the summer, for fireworks, because we don't want to rattle the piping plovers. And why, Ray, I totally sympathize with it, and I totally agree with it, but I'm just saying, where are we going? I mean, and if you equate this with the commerce and the quality of life and for the islands and things like that, I mean, that's devastating. It's just not, you're not going on a vacation. If it takes 2 hours longer, if you're on vacation, it's one thing, but when you need the goods, it's another. So I don't know. It all depends if there's any middle ground with NOR when they start into this. They don't have, nothing supports the fact that we're overrun with white whales in Nantucket Sound because nobody's seen one. So, anyways, that's enough. Take it up. Send the letter.
Okay.
So I take it that it will continue to refine the letter. We'll circulate it amongst the board and proceed in that manner if that's acceptable.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Is that all you got?
That's all I got.
Okay. Does anybody have any items not reasonably anticipated by the chair? Mr. Malkin?
Yeah, thank you. I had discussed this with Bob. I just wanted to mention this to the board as well. John Kale and Joe Salito and myself have been talking with Bob and Sean for at least more than a year about a communications plan and program. I really think that the Steamship Authority would be well served, and the community it serves, if we were more proactive in getting our message, our comments, the things that we're doing, putting them into context for people so that they understand them, so that our management doesn't have to spend an awful lot of time, in my opinion, reacting to things that are petitions or comments or social media posts, but instead we put facts out in front of our traveling public in a proactive manner. So I talked with Bob. I would like to see a communications plan. I'd like to see it planned, and then I'd like to see it implemented. And I think we share that. And a great example of this is Bob had mentioned in his scheduling discussion the petition that came from the Vineyard about a late night ferry service. Well, I don't know whether that petitioner is aware, as this board is, that we have a licensee who runs in Edgartown to Falmouth service, who had come and asked about running a late night service for workers at the end of their shifts to take them back to the mainland. These kinds of things are are appropriate and can be worked out. But we need to let people know that these things are there. And I look forward to seeing a good, solid communications plan presented and then implemented. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? How about some public comment? Do we have public comment?
Murray, you're on.
Can you hear me? Am I on?
You're on. Go ahead,
Okay,
Murray.
great. Thank you. I just wanted to circle back a little bit on the prior agenda item and emphasize the significance that not only would have on what we believe is Highline, but in general, high-speed service. And what I feel is, you know, the term lifeline has changed over the course of years. And I do think lifeline does now have to include island life as it currently exists beyond just receiving goods and services. But the reality, as had been mentioned by Mr. Lowell, that this would set back the island, particularly Nantucket, 50 plus years. Slowing down high-speed vessels is not an option. Okay, this, as currently proposed, this regulation eliminates high-speed ferry service and the business plan for it. And you know, as you know, we've been licensed for many years to provide this, and it would remove us from the equation and remove 75% of the passenger transits to Nantucket between steamship and Highline for high-speed service. And I think it goes, and that's for 6 months out of the gate. And I think we have to be careful when you look at the dynamic speed zones. And although as has been mentioned, we all are concerned about the plight of the right whale, but there has to be reasonableness in how you can address this. Just recently, there was the article on the entangled right whale that was spotted 15 miles south of Nantucket. And I'm not an expert on these regulations, but I believe as currently proposed, that particular whale would, even in the summertime, eliminate, there'd be a dynamic speed zone set up that would include Nantucket Sound when it has really no relevance to Nantucket Sound. And for a minimum of possibly 15 days, that could shut down commerce, high-speed ferries, and change things. So I have to get clarity on some of the exact impacts of this, but I think even in speaking with the dynamic speed zones, we have to be understand them thoroughly and be clear as to what impacts they could have upon not only our ferry services, but the island economies too. But I hope, you know, we can continue to work together and formulate for not only, you know, the steamship, and I know your considerations are a bit different than the licensed or private carriers, but I think we have to really make sure we are, in many instances, one voice in making sure that we can, you know, maintain not only our viability, but the, you know, life on the islands too. So I appreciate that, and we'll be working on our comments too, and hopefully we can work to some degree together on this.
Thank you, Murray.
And then Mr. Salzberg.
Mr. Salzberg.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
Hi, I have one question for the board regarding this 9 a.m. Zoom on the open house that you folks have set up on a Friday. I'm just curious if you think that, you know, a lot of working class people are going to be able to attend that, because one might think they would be working at that time.
I scheduled that. Would you like me to handle that, Mr. Rennie?
Mr. Driscoll.
That was the time that worked schedule wise for our staff, and we are recording it so people will be able to view it on our YouTube channel. And it is consistent with the times that our board typically meets now.
Is there a chance you might schedule another one at a more accommodating time for people like teachers, nurses, grocery?
Well, I guess you're presupposing that everybody works 9 to 5, Rich. But we're going to have one and we'll record it and people can reach out if they have questions.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Not hearing any, I would like to entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss and approve the minutes of the authorities meeting in executive session on August 16th, 2022, and to review the authority strategy with respect to collective bargaining negotiations, because a public discussion of these matters may have a detrimental effect on the authority's negotiating and bargaining positions. These matters include the anticipated and ongoing negotiations with Teamsters Union Local 59 and its maintenance employees. The public disclosure of any more information with respect to the matter would compromise the purposes for which the executive session is being called. After the conclusion of the executive session, we will not reconvene in public. Again, may I have a motion? Mr. Malcolm, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Jones and Mr. Jeffrey. So we'll take a roll call vote on that. All in favor?
Jones, aye.
Jeffrey, I.
Malcolm, I.
And Randy, aye. We are adjourned into executive session.
Thank you.
You had to gavel. Mr. Malcolm, Mr. Jeffrey, if you want to sign out and sign back in 5 minutes at 12:02, we'll get started on executive.
Do you have any questions? Let me know.
Yes, and Malcolm will have then 15 minutes. Thank you.
We'll be brief.
Yeah.